Alex spent the next 3 days preparing for his presentation. He organized his notes, practiced explaining his ideas, and tried to make his approach sound as scientific as possible. But the more he prepared, the more nervous he became. The night before the presentation, Alex couldn't sleep. He sat at his desk, staring at the formula on his screen and flipping through his notebooks. Everything he had written looked strange and unscientific. How could he stand in front of brilliant alien minds and talk about flower patterns and musical harmonies? By 3 in the morning, Alex was exhausted. His eyes burned from staring at the symbols, and his head ached from thinking too hard. He decided to rest for just a few minutes before continuing his preparation. Alex folded his arms on the desk and put his head down. He closed his eyes and tried to clear his mind. The formula symbols were still glowing on his screen, casting soft light across his notebooks. Within minutes, he was fast asleep. In his dream, Alex found himself standing in a vast space filled with gentle light. The Vorthen formula floated in front of him, but it looked completely different now. Instead of flat symbols on a screen, the mathematical elements were three-dimensional, alive, and moving like dancers in slow motion. The numbers and symbols pulsed with their own rhythm, like a heartbeat or breathing. Alex could hear music coming from them, soft and complex, with harmonies that seemed to explain the relationships between different parts of the formula. Each symbol sang its own note, but together they created a symphony that was beautiful beyond anything Alex had ever experienced. As he watched, the formula began to tell him a story. The symbols weren't just mathematical relationships. They were characters in an ancient tale about the creation of energy and the birth of stars. The equation showed how the universe had learned to create power from nothing, how empty space could become filled with light and heat and life. Alex reached out to touch one of the symbols, and it felt warm and alive under his fingers. Suddenly, he could understand what the Vorthens had been trying to say. They hadn't created a mathematical formula at all. They had written a poem about the universe, a song about creation, a dance about the birth of energy. The formula wasn't meant to be solved through calculation. It was meant to be experienced, felt, understood with the heart as much as the mind. The Vorthens had been artists as well as scientists, and they had hidden their greatest discovery inside a work of art. In the dream, Alex could see the solution clearly. It wasn't about forcing the symbols to behave according to logical rules. It was about letting them flow naturally, like water finding its way downhill, like music finding its harmony, like a flower growing toward the sun. The formula wanted to be solved. It had been waiting for someone who could see beyond pure logic. Someone who could understand that the most important truths in the universe were often the most beautiful ones. Alex felt the answer forming in his mind like a sunrise. Slowly, gently, the solution revealed itself. Not through calculation or computation, but through understanding. The formula wasn't a lock to be picked. It was a gift to be received. As the dream continued, Alex saw the solved formula releasing. Its energy. Light poured out of it like water from a broken dam, but it was controlled and beautiful. The energy flowed in patterns that matched the golden ratio, spiraling outward in perfect harmony. It was unlimited power, but it was also art, music, poetry, and love all combined into one incredible force. The symbols began to fade, but before they disappeared completely, Alex heard them whisper something important. The solution wasn't just about the mathematics, it was about the approach. The Vorthens had known that some problems could only be solved by minds that could think differently, minds that could see connections that pure logic would miss. Alex woke up with a start. The sun was streaming through his small window, and his screen had gone dark to save power. He sat up, confused and disoriented. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was or what he had been doing. Then the dream came flooding back. The living formula, the music, the story, the solution that had seemed so clear and obvious. Alex grabbed his notebook and began writing, frantically trying to capture everything he could remember before it faded away. But as he wrote, Alex realized something troubling. The solution from his dream made perfect sense while he was asleep, but now that he was awake, he couldn't quite grasp it. It was like trying to hold water in his hands. The harder he squeezed, the more it slipped away. Still, something remained. A feeling and understanding, a sense of direction that he hadn't had before. Alex looked at the formula on his screen with new eyes. The symbols seemed different now, more alive, more connected to each other and to something larger than themselves. Began to work with renewed energy. Instead of trying to force the mathematics to make sense, he let his mind wander and make connections. He thought about the music he had heard in the dream and tried to translate it into mathematical relationships. He remembered the story the formula had told him and looked for narrative patterns in the symbol. Sequences. Hours passed without Alex noticing. He filled page after page with new observations, new connections, new ways of understanding what the Vorthons had created. Some of his ideas seemed crazy, but others felt right in a way that he couldn't explain. At noon, there was a knock at his door. Alex opened it to find Dr. Vex and Dr. Keth waiting in the hallway. "Dr. Carter," Dr. Vex said, "we came to escort you to the presentation. The other researchers are eager to hear your ideas." Alex looked back at his desk, covered with notebooks and scattered papers. "I'm not sure I'm ready. My work is still incomplete." "All the best work is incomplete," Dr. Keth said, her crystal form chiming softly. "That is what makes it interesting. Are you coming?" Alex grabbed his notebooks and followed the two alien scientists down the hallway. As they walked, he tried to organize his thoughts and prepare for what was about to happen. "Dr. Carter," Dr. Vex said, "I should warn you that word of your unusual approach has spread. There are more researchers attending this presentation than we originally planned." "How many more?" 37, Dr. Keth said, "including some very senior scientists from the Council's research division." Alex felt his stomach tighten. 37 of the galaxy's greatest minds were waiting to hear his ideas about flower patterns and musical harmonies. This was either going to be the most important moment of his life or the most embarrassing. They reached the conference room, and Alex could see through the glass walls that it was packed with alien scientists. Zephyrians, Nexari, Altarians, and species that Alex didn't even recognize. All of them were there to hear what the human had to say about the formula that had puzzled them for centuries. "Ready?" Dr. Vex asked. Alex took a deep breath and thought about his dream. The formula had been alive, beautiful, and eager to share its secrets. Maybe these brilliant scientists would understand what he had experienced. Maybe they would see what he had seen. "I'm ready," Alex said, and they entered the room. The presentation was about to begin, but Alex felt strangely calm. He had something to share that no one else had discovered. Whether they believed him or not, he was going to tell them about the dream where mathematics became music and the universe revealed its greatest secret. Over the next few days, Alex developed a routine. During the day, he did his regular cleaning work and organized the alien research files. At night, he studied the formula in his small quarters, filling notebook after notebook with his observations. His approach was completely different from anything the aliens had tried. While they focused on calculating and computing, Alex tried to understand the formula like a piece of art. He looked for beauty in its structure, rhythm in its progression, and meaning in its patterns. Dr. Kevin Wright, another human who worked in the engineering section, stopped by Alex's quarters one evening. Kevin was older and had been on the station longer than most humans. He had learned to keep his head down and do his job without attracting attention. "Lisa told me what you're working on," Kevin said, looking at the notebooks scattered across Alex's desk. "You need to stop this before it gets you in trouble." Alex looked up from his latest sketch. He had been drawing the formula symbols as if they were flowers, trying to see if their relationships followed natural growth patterns. "I'm not bothering anyone. I do my work during the day. That's not the point," Kevin said. He sat down on Alex's bed, which was the only other place to sit in the tiny room. "The aliens are starting to talk about the crazy human who thinks he can solve their ancient puzzle. Some of them find it amusing, but others are getting annoyed. Annoyed? About what? Kevin sighed. They think you're making fun of them. Like you're saying their 300 years of work means nothing because some human can just walk in and solve it. Alex put down his pen. I'm not making fun of anyone. I'm just trying to understand the formula. But you're doing it wrong, Kevin said, pointing at the notebooks. Look at this stuff. You're drawing pictures and writing about music. That's not how mathematics works. Maybe that's the problem, Alex said quietly. What? Maybe everyone has been trying to solve this. The wrong way. Maybe the Vortons didn't think like we do. Maybe their formula needs a different kind of thinking. Kevin picked up one of the notebooks and flipped through it. The pages were filled with sketches, diagrams, and notes that looked more like art than science. Alex, this is just random scribbling. You're seeing patterns that aren't there. How do you know they're not there? Because mathematics doesn't work that way. Numbers are numbers. Logic is logic. You can't solve equations by drawing pictures. Of flowers. Alex took the notebook back. The aliens have been using pure logic for 3 centuries. How's that working out for them? Before Kevin could answer, there was a knock at the door. Alex opened it to find Dr. Vex standing in the hallway. The Zephyrian's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, which Alex had learned meant he was curious about something. Dr. Carter, Dr. Vex said, I hope you don't mind the interruption. I wanted to check on your progress with the formula. Kevin stood up quickly. I should go, he said, clearly uncomfortable. He left without saying goodbye. Dr. Vex entered the small room and looked around. His eyes fixed on the notebooks scattered everywhere. You have been busy. May I see your work? Alex hesitated. He knew the alien would probably laugh at his notes, but Dr. Vex was being polite, and Alex was supposed to show respect to the senior scientist. It's not really mathematical work, Alex said, handing over one of the notebooks. Just observations. Dr. Vex took the notebook and began reading. His 3 eyes moved in different directions as he processed the information at incredible speed. Alex watched his face, trying to guess what he was thinking. Fascinating, Dr. Vex said finally. You have connected the formula structure to something called the golden ratio from your homeworld, and you believe this relationship appears in natural growth patterns. It's just an idea, Alex said quickly. I know it's not real mathematics. Not real mathematics, Dr. Vex repeated. He continued reading, his expression growing more puzzled. You have also noted relationships between the symbol progressions and musical harmonies. And you have drawn parallels between the formula's flow and what you call poetry. Alex felt his face grow warm. I know it sounds stupid. Stupid? Dr. Vex looked up from the notebook. No, Dr. Carter, it is not stupid. It is completely illogical, which is what makes it so interesting. Alex wasn't sure if that was good or bad. Dr. Vex sat down at Alex's desk and opened another notebook. We Zephyrians pride ourselves on logical thinking. We approach every problem with systematic analysis and computational power. The idea of connecting mathematics to art or music is foreign to us. I understand, Alex said. Your way makes more sense. Does it? Dr. Vex continued reading. We have failed to solve this formula for 3 centuries using our logical methods. Perhaps logic is not the answer. Alex stared at the alien scientist. This was not the reaction he had expected. Tell me about this golden ratio, Dr. Vex said. How does it relate to the formula? Alex sat down on his bed and tried to explain. On Earth, we found this mathematical relationship that appears everywhere. In nature, in flower petals, in seashells, in the way galaxies spiral. It's about 1.618, and it shows up in places where things grow naturally. And you see this pattern in the Vorten formula? I think so. Some of the symbol relationships seem to follow the same proportions. Like the formula is trying to grow, like a living thing instead of being calculated like a machine. Dr. Vex made a sound that Alex had never heard before. It was like wind chimes, but softer. "Live in mathematics," he said. The Vorthins were known for their unusual approaches to science. They saw connections where others saw only separate facts. You knew about the Vorthins, of course. They were an ancient species, far older than any of us. They disappeared millions of years ago, but their science was unique. They combined logic with intuition in ways that we have never understood. Alex felt a spark of excitement. So maybe the formula isn't just mathematics. Maybe it's something else too. Perhaps, Dr. Vex said. He closed the notebook and looked at Alex carefully. "Dr. Carter, I must ask you something. Are you aware that other scientists are watching your work with interest?" "Watching my work?" "Word has spread about the human who approaches the formula differently. Some find it amusing. Others are curious. And a few are beginning to wonder if you might be onto something." Alex couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Really? Really? Dr. Keth has been particularly interested in your observations about musical harmonies. The Nexari process information in quantum states, but they had never considered that the formula might contain patterns similar to sound waves." Dr. Vex stood up and moved toward the door. "I have a suggestion, Dr. Carter. Tomorrow, would you be willing to present your observations to a small group of researchers? Nothing formal, just a chance to share your ideas." Alex felt his heart racing. "I don't know if I'm ready. My work isn't complete. No scientific work is ever complete," Dr. Vex said. "But sometimes sharing incomplete ideas leads to new discoveries. Will you consider it?" After Dr. Vex left, Alex sat alone in his quarters, staring at his notebooks. For the first time since he had started studying the formula, he felt like he might actually be doing something right. He picked up his pen and continued working. Tonight, he wanted to explore the connection between the formula and something he had noticed in Earth's music. Classical composers had used mathematical relationships in their work, creating harmony through numerical patterns. What if the Vorthins had done the same thing? What if their formula was meant to be heard as well as calculated? Alex opened a new notebook and began to write. He had no idea if his approach would work, but he was finally beginning to understand something important. The greatest minds in the galaxy had failed because they were all thinking the same way. Sometimes, Alex realized, being different was exactly what was needed. The next morning, Alex woke up early and went to his job like always. He cleaned equipment, sorted files, and tried to stay invisible. But his mind kept thinking about the formula. During his lunch break, he sat in the corner of the station's cafeteria with his notebook, sketching patterns he had seen in the mathematical symbols. "What are you working on?" Alex looked up to see Dr. Lisa Park, another human who worked in the xenobiology section. She was one of the few humans on the station who had earned some respect from the aliens, mostly because she was good at following their instructions exactly. "Just some notes about the Vorthin formula," Alex said quietly. Lisa sat down across from him, her face showing worry. "Alex, you need to be careful. I heard what happened yesterday in the lab. The aliens are already talking about it." "What are they saying?" "They think it's funny. Dr. Vex told everyone about the human who thinks he can solve the ancient formula. They're calling it entertainment." Lisa leaned forward. "Look, I know you're smart, but this is going to make all humans look bad. These aliens already think we're stupid. Don't give them more reasons to laugh at us." Alex closed his notebook. He understood why Lisa was worried. Life on the station was easier when the aliens didn't notice you. "I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just want to understand the formula." "Why?" Lisa asked. "Even if you could somehow help, which you can't, they would never admit it. They would find a way to take credit for themselves." Before Alex could answer, a shadow fell over their table. Commander Kell, a Nexari crystal being, stood next to them. Her form was tall and angular, made of what looked like living diamond. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music played on glass instruments. "Dr. Carter," she said, using Alex's title even though everyone knew he was just a cleaning assistant. I have heard about your interest in the Vorthen formula. How fascinating. Alex stood up quickly. Commander Kell, I was just curious about the symbols. Curious, she repeated, and her crystal form chimed softly. Tell me, Dr. Carter, what do you know about human intellectual capacity compared to other species? Lisa kicked Alex under the table, warning him to be careful. But Commander Kell was Alex's direct supervisor, and he had to answer. I know that humans are considered less advanced in mathematics and science, Alex said. Less advanced, Commander Kell agreed. That is a polite way to put it. Would you like to know the real facts about human intelligence? Alex didn't want to know, but he nodded anyway. Commander Kell's form sparkled as she accessed data files. The average human brain processes information at approximately 200 calculations per second. The average Zephyrian brain processes 50,000 calculations per second. My own species processes information at quantum speeds that humans cannot even measure. Other aliens in the cafeteria had started listening. Some were smiling if their species could smile. Human lifespans are also remarkably short, Commander Kell continued. You live for maybe 100 years, while most council species live for 500 to 1,000 years. This means you have far less time to learn and develop your knowledge. Alex felt his face getting hot, but he stood still and listened. Most importantly, Commander Kell said, human mathematics are based on simple base 10 counting. Your species literally counts on your fingers. Meanwhile, the Altarians think in base 144 mathematics, and we Nexari process information in quantum mathematical states. Dr. Vex had walked over during the conversation. His three eyes focused on Alex with what might have been pity. Commander Kell speaks the truth. Your species is. How do you humans say it ... got out of your league? The Vorthen formula added. Dr. Rao, his massive brain pulsing with thought, requires understanding of mathematics that your species will not develop for thousands of years. If ever, Alex looked around the cafeteria. Every alien was watching him now. Some looked amused, others looked bored by the obvious facts being discussed. The few other humans in the room looked embarrassed and uncomfortable. I understand, Alex said quietly. I didn't mean to waste anyone's time. Oh, but you haven't wasted our time, Dr. Vex said cheerfully. Watching species attempt tasks beyond their abilities is quite educational. It reminds us all of our proper places in the galaxy. Commander Kell's form chimed again. Dr. Carter, since you are so interested in the formula, perhaps you would like to help with some related tasks. We need someone to organize the data files. From our failed attempts, it requires no mathematical skill, just the ability to sort papers by date. The other aliens made sounds that Alex had learned meant amusement. They were giving him busy work, the kind of simple job that humans were considered good for. Yes, Commander, Alex said. I would be happy to help. After the aliens left, Lisa shook her head. I tried to warn you. Now they're going to give you extra work just to keep you busy and out of the way. Alex picked up his notebook. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. What do you mean? If I'm organizing their data files, I'll get to see all their previous attempts. I'll learn what they've already tried. Lisa stared at him. Alex, you're not actually thinking you can solve this, are you? You heard what they said. Human brains are too slow. We don't have enough time to learn what we would need to know. Our mathematics are too simple. Maybe, Alex said. But maybe that's not the whole story. That afternoon, Commander Kell showed Alex to a small storage room filled with data files. Thousands of attempts to solve the Vorthen formula were stored here, going back 3 centuries. Each file contained detailed mathematical work done by some of the smartest beings in the galaxy. Organize these by date and species, Commander Kell instructed. Do not attempt to understand the mathematics. Simply sort the files and make neat stacks. Alex nodded and got to work. But as he sorted the files, he couldn't help but look at the mathematical work inside them. The Zephyrian attempts were incredibly complex, with calculations that went on for hundreds of pages. The Nexari work was even more advanced. Using quantum mathematics that Alex barely recognized, every approach was logical, systematic, and thorough. The aliens had tried every possible mathematical technique. They had used computers more powerful than anything on Earth. They had worked in teams, combining their incredible intelligence, and they had all failed. As Alex worked, he began to notice something interesting. All the attempts followed the same basic pattern. They treated the formula as a pure mathematical problem. They approached it with logic and calculation. They tried to solve it through raw computational power, but what if that wasn't the right approach? What if the Vortons had hidden something in the formula that logic couldn't find? Alex pulled out his notebook and began writing down his thoughts. He wasn't trying to solve the formula yet. He was just trying to understand it differently. While the aliens saw mathematical symbols, Alex found himself seeing patterns that reminded him of things from Earth. Some of the symbol relationships looked like musical harmonies. Others seemed to follow the same growth patterns as flowers or seashells. The way the formula was structured reminded him of poetry, with rhythm and flow that pure mathematics didn't usually have. Hours passed as Alex worked. He sorted files and made notes, trying to understand why the greatest minds in the galaxy had failed. Slowly, an idea began to form. Maybe the problem wasn't that the formula was too hard for humans to solve. Maybe it was too hard for purely logical minds to solve. When his shift ended, Alex returned to his quarters with his notebook full of new observations. He still had no idea how to solve the formula, but he was starting to understand something important. The aliens were right about human intelligence being different, but they might be wrong about it being inferior. As he sat at his desk that night, Alex began to wonder if being a slow thinker might actually be an advantage. While the aliens rushed through calculations at incredible speeds, maybe humans could see things at fast-thinking Miss Dot. It was a crazy idea, but Alex had nothing to lose. Tomorrow, he would continue his work and see where these strange new thoughts would lead him. The silver walls of the Galactic Council Station hummed with energy as thousands of the galaxy's brightest minds worked day and night. For 300 years, they had faced the same problem. The ancient Vorton Empire had left behind a gift, and a curse rolled into one. Hidden in their ruins was a mathematical formula that could change everything. If solved, it would unlock unlimited energy for the entire galaxy. But the formula was like a locked door, and no one could find the key. Doctor Alex Carter pushed his cleaning cart down the long hallway outside the main research lab. His human ID badge marked him as a Level 1 research assistant, which meant he mostly cleaned equipment and sorted papers. The aliens barely noticed him as he worked. To them, he was just another slow-thinking human who was lucky to have any job at all on their advanced space station. Through the glass walls, Alex could see the Zephyrian scientists working at their crystal computers. Their blue skin glowed as their minds processed information at incredible speeds. They could solve math problems in seconds that would take Alex hours. Their elongated heads housed brains that worked like the most powerful computers ever built. Yet even they had failed to crack the Vorton formula. Still nothing, muttered Dr. Vex, the lead Zephyrian mathematician. His three eyes focused on the floating symbols that made up the ancient equation. We have tried every possible combination. Every logical path leads to a dead end. Alex slowed his cart and pretended to clean a nearby workstation. He had heard this conversation many times before. The formula appeared on screens throughout the lab, taunting everyone who looked at it. It was beautiful in its complexity, with symbols that seemed to dance and shift when Alex stared at them too long. Nexari scientists were having no better luck. These crystal beings could process quantum calculations in their very bones. Their bodies were made of living mathematics, and they could think in ways that other species couldn't even understand. But the formula remained unsolved. Perhaps we should try a different approach, suggested Dr. Keth. her crystal form sparkling under the lab lights. "We have been treating this as a pure mathematical problem. What if there is something else we are missing?" The other scientists made sounds that Alex had learned meant disagreement. The Altarians, with their massive brains that took up half their bodies, insisted that mathematics was mathematics. Logic was logic. There was no other way to approach the problem. Alex finished cleaning the workstation and moved closer to Git. A better look at the formula. The symbols were unlike anything from Earth's mathematics, but something about them felt familiar. They reminded him of patterns he had seen in music, in art, in the way leaves grew on trees back home. "What are you doing here, human?" Alex jumped. Dr. Vex had noticed him staring at the screen. The Zephyrian's voice carried the tone that Alex had grown used to hearing from most aliens. It was the same way people might talk to a pet that had wandered where it shouldn't be. "Sorry, sir. Just cleaning the station." Alex began to push his cart away, but Dr. Vex stopped him. "You were looking at the formula. Do you even understand what you are seeing?" Alex hesitated. He knew he should just apologize and leave. Getting the aliens angry was never a good idea. But something made him speak up. "I was just curious about the symbols. They're interesting." Dr. Vex laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Interesting? This formula has puzzled the greatest minds in the galaxy for centuries. It requires intelligence far beyond what your species possesses." Other scientists had stopped their work to listen. Alex felt their eyes on him, some amused, others annoyed by the interruption. A few humans working at other stations looked embarrassed by the attention. "Could I maybe look at the full formula?" Alex asked quietly. "Just to see it?" The lab fell silent. Then the laughter began. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults make when a child asks to drive a spaceship. Dr. Vex's three eyes blinked in sequence, which Alex knew meant he was very amused. "You want to solve the Vorthin formula?" Dr. Vex asked. "The same formula that has defeated teams of Zephyrian mathematicians? The same equation that our quantum computers cannot crack?" "I just want to look at it," Alex said. "Maybe I could help somehow." Dr. Keff's crystal form chimed, which was how Nexari laughed. "Help? Dear human, your species has barely discovered faster than light travel. Your mathematics are primitive compared to ours. You think in straight lines, while we think in dimensions you cannot even imagine. Besides," added Dr. Rao, an Altarian whose brain pulsed with thought, "humans are known for being slow thinkers. Your neural processing speed is a fraction of ours. What we can calculate in minutes would take you days." Alex felt his face grow warm. He had heard this before, many times. Humans were the newest species in the Galactic Council, and they were definitely the least impressive. Where other species had evolved incredible intelligence, humans had developed slowly. They were decent at following orders and doing simple tasks, but advanced mathematics and science were beyond them. "I understand," Alex said. "I just thought maybe a fresh perspective might help." Dr. Vex considered this. The idea seemed to entertain him very well. "If you wish to embarrass yourself, who are we to stop you? Dr. Keff, please give our human friend access to the basic formula files. Perhaps watching him struggle will remind us all why we are the ones in charge of this research." Dr. Keff's form sparkled as she transferred the files to Alex's basic workstation. "There you go, human. The formula that has stumped the galaxy's best minds for 3 centuries. I'm sure you'll solve it by lunchtime." More laughter filled the lab. Alex nodded his thanks and pushed his cart toward the exit. He could hear the scientists returning to their work, already forgetting about him. That was fine. He was used to being forgotten, but as he walked back to his small quarters, Alex felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Excitement. He had always loved math, even as a child on Earth. It was one of the reasons he had applied to work on the council station, even though he knew he would only get a basic job. His quarters were tiny, just a bed, a desk, and a small food processor. But it was quiet, and it was his. Alex sat at his desk and called up the formula on his screen. The symbols filled the display, complex and beautiful and mysterious. He stared at them for a long time. The aliens were right about one thing. This was far beyond anything he had ever seen. The mathematics involved concepts that human science was just beginning to understand. But as he looked at the symbols, Alex began to see something else. Patterns. Relationships. Connections that seemed to go beyond pure logic. He picked up an old-fashioned paper notebook and began to write. Not calculations or equations, but observations. The way certain symbols seemed to relate to others. The rhythm he felt in the mathematical progressions. The beauty he saw in the formula structure got hours passed without Alex noticing. The aliens in the lab would have called his approach primitive and unscientific. They would have been right. But Alex had learned something in his years of being overlooked and underestimated. Sometimes the best solutions came from the most unexpected places. As the station's artificial night began, Alex finally looked up from his notebook. His pages were filled with sketches, notes, and ideas that probably made no sense to anyone else. But for the first time since arriving at the station, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. Tomorrow he will continue. The greatest minds in the galaxy might have failed, but Alex Carter was just getting started. Jake spent most of the night preparing his presentation with Vex's help. The alien technician had access to detailed sensor data that showed exactly how the interference patterns were developing. Together, they created simple diagrams that even non-engineers could understand. The wave patterns are getting worse every hour, Vex said, pointing to the latest readings. At this rate, we have maybe 36 hours before total system failure. Jake looked at the data with growing alarm. That's faster than anyone expected. The interference is not just adding up anymore. It's creating feedback loops. Each wave makes the next wave stronger. Lisa joined them in the early morning, carrying coffee that the aliens had somehow managed to replicate for the humans. How's it going? Not good, Jake said. The system is failing faster than predicted. If we're going to try my solution, we need to do it today. The Grand Assembly is meeting again in 2 hours, Lisa said. They're going to present more complex solutions. Something about using black holes to absorb excess energy. Jake shook his head. Black holes? They're really overthinking this. Vex looked worried. Jake, I need to tell you something. I ran your calculations through our computer systems last night. And, according to our models, your solution would work. But there's a problem. The computer is designed to optimize for perfect efficiency. It keeps trying to return the generators to perfect synchronization. Can you override the computer? Yes, but only with direct authorization from the Grand Assembly. The safety protocols won't allow major system changes without approval from the highest levels. Jake felt his stomach sink. So even if I convince them that my solution will work, they still have to vote on it. Yes, and that could take days. We don't have days. Lisa set down her coffee cup. Then we need to make sure they vote yes today. An hour later, Jake stood in the Grand Assembly chamber with his tablet and a simple presentation. He had refused. The alien technology that would have created holographic displays and complex visual effects. Instead, he had basic diagrams that showed wave patterns and timing sequences. The chamber was full again, with representatives from all 12 species. But today there was an atmosphere of urgency that hadn't been there before. Everyone knew. That time was running out. Ambassador Korvac addressed the assembly. My friends, the situation has become critical. Our latest models show that complete power failure will occur within 36 hours. We must choose a solution today. The lead Luminian stepped forward. We have prepared an emergency plan. We can create controlled black holes to absorb the excess energy from the interference patterns. It will require all our resources, but it can be implemented within 24 hours. A Machina collective unit rolled forward. Our analysis shows a 17% chance of success with the black hole solution. However, failure would result in the destruction of this entire star system. Murmurs went through the assembly. A 17% chance of success, with total destruction as the alternative if it failed. A Nebulan's voice thundered across the chamber. We propose evacuation. Our ships can carry 2 billion beings to safety. The rest, we cannot save. Them all. Jake felt his heart pounding. They were talking about abandoning 10 billion people because they couldn't see the simple solution right in front of them. Ambassador Korvac noticed Jake standing at the edge of the human observation platform. Observer Morrison, you seem agitated. Do you have something to say? The entire chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward Jake. He could feel the weight of their attention and their skepticism. Lisa gave him an encouraging nod. Jake, step forward. Yes, Ambassador. I believe I have a solution. The silence stretched longer. Finally, the lead Luminian spoke. Human, we appreciate your interest, but this crisis requires advanced scientific knowledge that your species does not possess. With respect, Jake said, his voice steady despite his nervousness, I think you're making the problem more complicated than it needs to be. A ripple of what might have been laughter went through some of the alien delegations. The metallic spider creature clicked its mandibles. The human thinks our science is too complicated? Jake pulled out his tablet and activated the simple presentation he had prepared. May I show you something? Korvac gestured for him to continue. Jake's diagrams appeared on the main display, looking primitive next to the complex equations and 3D models the aliens have been using. The problem is harmonic interference, Jake began. All your generators are running at the same frequency, creating waves that add up instead of spreading out. We know this, said a Machina unit impatiently. The solutions we have proposed address this interference, but they don't address the cause, Jake replied. You're trying to fix the symptoms instead of the disease. Jake advanced to his next diagram, showing wave patterns from multiple sources. When you have many identical signals in the same space, they create constructive and destructive interference. Areas where the waves add up get too much power. Areas where they cancel out get too little. This is elementary physics, said the Luminian dismissively. We learned this principle thousands of years ago. Then why aren't you using them? Jake asked. Instead of having all generators pulse at the same moment, stagger the timing. Create a wave pattern instead of a spike. Jake showed his final diagram illustrating how staggered timing would distribute the energy evenly across the power grid. The total power output stays the same, but the interference patterns disappear. The chamber was quiet again, but this time it felt different. Jake could see aliens looking at each other, considering what he had said. The lead Machina unit ran calculations on its internal computers. The mathematics are ... correct, but the implementation would require precise timing adjustments across 1,427 generators. How precise? Asked ANEBULAN. Jake consulted his notes. Millisecond precision. Each generator needs to be offset by a specific amount to create the proper wave pattern. That level of precision is easily achievable, said Vex, speaking up from the technician section. Several aliens turned to look at her in surprise. We have the technology to implement these changes within 2 hours. 2 hours? Korvac's scale shifted color. Are you certain? Yes, Ambassador. The timing controls already exist. We would simply need to reprogram the synchronization sequences. The lead Luminian's crystal body pulsed with agitation. This is too simple. Problems of this magnitude require sophisticated solutions. Why? Jake asked. If a simple solution works, why is that a problem? Because ... The Luminian paused, seeming to struggle with the question. Because simple solutions are for simple problems. This is not a simple problem. Actually, it is, Jake said quietly. You've been thinking of it as a quantum physics problem, but it's really just a timing problem. The quantum generators are amazing technology, but the interference is happening because of basic wave mechanics. A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It was an alien Jake hadn't seen before, ancient and covered in what looked like living moss. "Young human, you speak of your grandfather's wisdom. What else did he teach you?" Jake was surprised by the question. "He taught me that the best solutions are usually the simplest ones. He said that if you can't explain how something works to a child, you don't really understand it yourself." The ancient alien nodded slowly. "Wisdom often comes from unexpected sources. I have lived for 3,000 years and watched many civilizations rise and fall. The ones that survive are not always the most advanced. They are the ones that remember." "Simple truths?" Korvek looked around the chamber. "We must vote. The human solution is untested, but it can be implemented quickly. The alternative solutions offer no guarantee of success and carry enormous risks." "I object," said the lead Luminian. "We cannot bet our civilization on the untested theory of a primitive species." "What makes us primitive?" Jake asked, his patience finally running out. "The fact that we use simple solutions instead of complicated ones? The fact that we fix problems instead of debating them?" The chamber fell silent again. Jake realized he had probably gone too far, but he was tired of being dismissed. The ancient alien spoke again. "Perhaps it is time to consider that advancement is not always about complexity. Sometimes it is about remembering what works." Korvik called for the vote. "All in favor of attempting the human solution?" Jake held his breath as lights began appearing throughout the chamber. Green lights for yes, red lights for no. Slowly, more and more green lights appeared. When the count was finished, the result was clear. 8 species voted yes, 4 voted no. "The motion passes," Korvik announced. "We will attempt the human solution immediately." Jake felt his knees go weak with relief, but the real test was still ahead. He had convinced them to try his solution, but now he had to prove that it would actually work.